What is up, guys? Today we're going to be installing a 143cc big bore kit onto my buddy's Klx110. Now this is a 2020 model year KLX, but this big bore kit actually works with all model years. That's a really good thing about it. So this install video will work for you no matter what year your Klx110 is. This kit also works with a few other bikes as well. Go ahead and show that a little bit later on in the video, but let's go ahead and check out this big bore kit. Alright, so here we have our big bore kit from TB. I love these kits. I actually installed one on my son's XR70 a couple years back. So the TB 88cc big bore kit for the XR70. These are a proven way to make horsepower gains, and they're reliable. That's the best thing about them. My son's bike still starts up first kick, so very reliable way to make some extra horsepower and a fun way to get some extra power out of your little pit bike or your kid's bike if they're ready to get a little more power but they're not ready to take a step up in bike size. So these kits are very easy to install. So they come with everything you need: a cylinder head, we have a piston. This is a pretty nice piston as well. They also make it convenient and they give you all the gaskets that you'll need: a ring, circlips, wrist pin. Everything comes in this little kit, so really convenient. So we'll go ahead and get ready to install it onto this little Klx110. Like I said, this is a 2020, but that kit will work for all model years. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Alright, we're going to start by removing the plastics. So we're going to remove all these 8mm bolts and their washers as well. And we'll make sure we keep them together and set them aside. So we'll go around to the other side and remove those 8mm bolts as well. Now we can go ahead and remove our seat and our number plate. Underneath the number plate there is one more 8mm bolt for the fairings. So we'll remove the number plate from the other side as well. And that little 8mm bolt for the fairings on that side as well. Now we can go ahead and remove our fairings. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove our exhaust and its two 12mm nuts. So we'll go ahead and remove both of those, and then we'll set them aside. There is one more 12mm nut for the rear mount for the exhaust, so we'll go ahead and remove that. Now we can go ahead and snake our exhaust out the back, kind of in a twisting motion, just like that. So we'll go ahead and remove that. Now I'm going to go ahead and break this 10mm banjo bolt loose for our oil line. And I'm actually going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit so you guys can see better. There's also one here down on the bottom, so we'll break that banjo bolt loose as well. And then we'll go ahead and remove it. There are two copper washers on both sides of the banjo bolt, so you want to make sure you keep those together. Now we can go ahead and remove our front one. So we'll go ahead and remove that. And we'll grab our washer as well. So we'll keep that together and set it aside. Now I actually had to have my buddy hold the bike down when I removed this Phillips head screw so it didn't strip out. So you may need a hand to remove that because it's on there pretty tight. And Phillips heads do strip out pretty easy. So we'll go ahead and set our oil line aside. Now we'll remove our clip for our fuel line and we'll pop our fuel line off. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove our throttle cable. So we'll go ahead and unthread our cap here. There is room to reach it, but you might want to just go ahead and remove the gas tank, make it a little easier, but there is plenty of room to get to it nonetheless. So go ahead and remove our slide and needle. there's a better look at our slide. So we'll go ahead and just let that hang to the side. Now we can go ahead and remove our clamp for the airbox. So this is just a Phillips head for this. And then once you have it loose, the airbox will just pop off. So we'll go ahead and remove that, just like that. Now we can get ready to remove our two 8mm bolts for the other side of our carb. So we'll break those loose with an 8mm wrench, unthread that side, and then we'll go around to the other side and do the same. So break that 8mm bolt loose. Then we'll unthread it, just like that, and we can go ahead and go to the other side and remove our choke cable. So there's just two 8mm bolts on this side of the bike for the choke cable. So we'll go ahead and remove those. So there is a ground wire on one of these bolts. So I'll go ahead and show you that in a second. There's that ground wire I was talking about. Here's a better look at the ground wire. You'll just want to make sure that you reinstall that when you reinstall the carb. So we'll just set that aside for now. Here's a better look at our carb removed with the choke cable still hooked up to it. So I just removed it as one piece. Now we can go ahead and break loose this 8mm bolt here. It's on the valve clearance adjuster, but there's also a guide for that clutch cable there. So go ahead and remove it. And now we'll break loose our 8mm bolt for our intake. Go ahead and unthread that. Now we'll go around to the other side and break that one loose as well. And then we'll go ahead and remove that one as well. So we'll go ahead and remove our intake and this little plastic spacer. Pop that off and set it aside. Now we can go ahead and remove our spark plug. We want to remove our spark plug because this is going to make sure there's no compression in the cylinder when we go to turn our motor over and set our timing marks. So it'll make it easier to set our timing marks as well. So we'll set that aside. Now we can go ahead and remove our stator cover and all of its 8mm bolts. So we'll go ahead and break all of those loose. And we're going to go ahead and remove the chain guard cover as well. And it's 3 8mm bolts. So we'll remove that. And there is a little case saver on the back side of that chain guard, so make sure you set it aside with it. Underneath that guard there is a couple more 8mm bolts for the stator cover, so we'll go ahead and break those loose as well. And now we can go ahead and remove all the bolts for our stator cover. So we'll just grab all these and set them aside. There are quite a few of them, so we'll go ahead and remove the last couple ones here. And now we can go ahead and remove our stator cover. I actually had to grab a pry bar to remove this because it's on there pretty good. So thank goodness Kawasaki does have a few tabs for prying on, so they know that cover gets stuck on pretty good. So we'll go ahead and set our stator cover aside. Now when I removed that cover, a gear for the starter actually popped off with it, so we'll go ahead and put its dowel pin back in, and then we'll go ahead and pop that gear back in as well. So we'll just pop that guy back on, just like that. Now we can go ahead and remove our cam gear cover, and it's for 8mm bolts. So we'll just break those 4 loose. And then we'll go ahead and remove all 4 of these. Now we can go ahead and set that aside. Now we're going to go ahead and turn our motor over until we get to top dead center. So we're going to come up on it there. I'll pull you guys off the stand so you can see the marks better. So here is a look at our timing mark for the flywheel. You can see there's a little line with a T right there that stands for top dead center, and there's also a notch in the side of the case there. So there's a mark on our flywheel, and here's the mark on our cam gear. So there's our notch in our head, and then that line for the cam gear. So those are our timing marks. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the ratchet so our crank can't move, and then we can break this bolt loose for the cam gear. They are really on there. They definitely use quite a bit of Loctite from the factory, so I'm going to break that loose. It is a 5mm Allen key bit that I used to remove that. So now we'll go ahead and rotate our motor over so we can gain access to the other cam gear bolt. So now we can go ahead and remove this one as well. So I already broke it loose earlier, so we're just going to go ahead and remove it here. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and remove our cam chain tensioner. So we're going to remove our top bolt here. And then we can use a little flathead screwdriver like this and insert it down in there, and then turn it clockwise all the way until it locks into place. Now we can go ahead and break loose our other 10mm bolts for the cam chain tensioner. So we'll go ahead and break both of those loose. We'll go ahead and unthread this one and remove it. Now we can come back around to this side, and for whatever reason the cam chain tensioner did not stay locked, so you can see it's actually coming up fully extended. It must have got bumped too hard, or I didn't lock it all the way, but we'll go ahead and remove it as well. And here's how it's supposed to work. So you insert the screwdriver down in there, and then you turn it clockwise, and you can see that it retracts. So when you turn it all the way, it should stay locked like this. Like I said, I must have bumped it too hard or something. And then when you turn counterclockwise, it extends and puts pressure on the cam chain. So we'll go ahead and wind that up and have it locked, and we'll set that aside. Now we can go ahead and remove our head nuts. So we'll do that in a crisscross pattern as well. So we'll break all 4 of these loose, going in that crisscross pattern. And we'll break this top one loose. And now we can go ahead and remove all of our little bolts. There is a little copper washer on this bottom left corner. You want to make sure you grab it as well. There's also 2 more 10mm head bolts on the inside of the head right there. So we'll go ahead and remove those 2. So I just use a 10mm socket and a little extension to get to those. So we'll break both of those loose. So we'll finish unthreading those. And then when I went to grab the bolt, our cam gear kind of came off, so we need to remove that anyway. So we'll go ahead and remove our cam gear. And then there's a better look at our cam gear. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. Now we'll remove our cylinder head. And we'll go ahead and grab our head gasket off of there and that little dowel pin there as well. We will be installing this into our new cylinder, so set that aside. Now we can go ahead and remove our cylinder. Make sure it's not getting caught up on our cam chain. Give that guy a few wiggles, just like that. And then we can go ahead and remove our cylinder. Now I did stuff some paper towels down into our crankcase before I removed that circlip for the piston. This is just to prevent that little circlip from potentially flying down into the crankcase. Those do like to fly off, and the last place we want it to go is down into our crankcase. This will also be useful when we go to clean up that base gasket, so it'll prevent any debris from falling down into our crankcase when we go to clean up all that gasket material. So definitely want to stuff something down in there before you remove the circlip or clean up that gasket. Now I'm just going to go ahead and rotate that circlip around to a slightly better position here. And then I'll go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to put that little flathead screwdriver in that little dimple there and kind of pry up on the circlip. So we'll pry up on it until a little lip pops up like that, and then I'm going to use my thumb to try and grab it so it doesn't fly off on us. So we got it. There's a better look at our circlip right there. So now we can go around to the other side and push our wrist pin out just like this. So we'll go ahead and push that all the way out and remove our piston. Now we can go ahead and switch our dowel pins over to our new cylinder. So we'll get all those switched over. Some of them might be a little stuck, so you can use a little pair of pliers to get them out. So we'll get that inserted into our new cylinder, and we'll get all 4 of them installed into our new cylinder. And from this side-by-side shot, you can really see just how much bigger our new cylinder bore is compared to our old one. So quite a big difference there. So should be making quite a bit more power. Now we'll go ahead and install our piston rings. We're going to start with this oil ring here that's corrugated as well. So we'll go ahead and turn it, and you can see that gap there. So we're going to line that gap up with our wrist pin hole. So we'll have that set there, and then we can install our oil ring rails. These are much thinner than the compression rings, so you won't mix them up or anything. So we'll go ahead and install our bottom oil ring rail. We'll get that into its little groove here, and then we'll just pop it in just like that. So we'll do the bottom first, and we have one gap by this piston skirt, and then we'll turn it around to the other side, and we'll install our top oil ring rail. So we'll go ahead and pop that into its little groove. just like that. And then we'll get that one installed as well. So you can see we have one gap by this piston skirt right there. And then if we turn it around, our other gap is on the other side right there. So now we can go ahead and install our compression rings. So if you look at these, they are marked. They have little R's on them right there. So when you install them, you want those R's facing up towards you. There are two different ones. One is fully black and the other one has a chrome edge to it. We're going to install this fully black one next. So it is our bottom compression ring and it goes in the middle slot. So we'll install it with that R facing up towards us. So we'll go ahead and get that one installed onto our piston, just like that. And I'll go ahead and rotate it to where our piston ring gap is supposed to be when it's installed onto the bike. Now we can go ahead and install our top ring as well. So again, we're going to make sure we install it with that R facing towards us. And this one's really easy to install. So we'll just go ahead and pop that one right on, just like this. And I'll go ahead and show you guys where the ring gaps are supposed to be staggered at when they're installed on the bike. So you can see they are about 180 degrees apart from each other. We have a gap there and then at the bottom. Now realistically, these are going to move when you go to install the piston. So I will show you guys a trick when we go to install our cylinder that makes sure our piston ring gaps are staggered properly. So I'll show you that when we install our cylinder. Now we can go ahead and install a circlip on the bench. Definitely easier to install on the bench than they are on the bike. So we'll get one done here. That'll make it easier to install later on. Now we can go ahead and install our piston. I did lubricate that wrist pin with some oil. That will make it much easier to install. So we'll slide that right in, just like that. And now we can go ahead and install our other circlip. I like to keep my thumb on it just to stop it from trying to fly off on us. So we'll get one side pushed in just like that. And then we'll go ahead and get our top side pushed in as well. Get that clicked in. Now, I did go ahead and clean up our base gasket surface off camera. I just used a razor blade and some sandpaper. So I got that guy all cleaned up. When you're installing new gaskets, you do need to make sure you remove all the old gasket material so you have a nice fresh mating surface. So we'll go ahead and install our new base gasket. Go ahead and slide our piston through. And we'll slide our cam chain through as well. And then we'll push that all the way to the back. Now, I did want to point out that our ratchet is still locking our crankshaft in place. So this is going to prevent the crank from turning when we go to install our cylinder. So it's locking our piston at top dead center, and that will make it easier to install our cylinder. I also lubricated the cylinder with some oil here. This is going to make it easier to install, plus give us some protection when we do our first startup. So we'll go ahead and slide our cylinder on here. We'll slide our cam chain through. We'll slide it a little bit further back and then continue pulling our cam chain through to where it can kind of hang on the other end and we don't have to really worry about it too much. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can see. There is our piston ring gap right there, and we want it to line up with this top stud in the right hand corner right there. So zoom in a little bit. You can see that ring gap right there is lining up with our stud. So that's a quick way to make sure your rings are properly staggered. So we're just going to compress one ring at a time. That way we have better control over where our piston ring gaps are. So let's do it nice and slow, one ring at a time. And I'll slowly compress that top ring, kind of working my way around, just like that. Go ahead and give it a few wiggles until we slide all the way over that top ring, just like that. So now we are slid over our top ring, and we have that one on. We'll go ahead and get ready to go around to the other side of the bike. So we'll go around to this side now, and we'll go ahead and rotate our ring until we see our piston ring gap. So there is our gap right there. Now we're going to continue turning that until it lines up with the stud in the bottom left hand corner right there. So once we have our gap where we want it, we'll go ahead and slide our cylinder over our second ring, just like that. So now we have our ring staggered properly. We'll go ahead and finish sliding our piston into the cylinder. So we'll get that slid on. Now we'll go back around to the other side just to make sure our cam chain isn't getting hung up on anything and our cam chain guides aren't getting hung up on anything. So we'll go ahead and finish sliding our cylinder on, just like that. Perfect. So it's looking so good. We'll go ahead and slide our head gasket on here. Go ahead and slide our cam chain through. Now we can go ahead and install our cylinder head. I did clean up our cylinder head with some sandpaper as well. There wasn't much material on it, but just want to make sure it's clean. So we'll go ahead and install our cylinder head. We'll slide our cam chain through, just like that. And then finish sliding our cylinder head on. Now we can go ahead and install our two 10mm head bolts. So we'll slide those in. We'll go ahead and start threading them in with this extension. So we'll thread them in until we're confident that they're not going to cross thread or anything. Now we'll finish them up with the ratchet here. Go ahead and snug both of those down. So we'll make sure both of those are nice and snug. And then we'll move on to our head bolts. So there's that washer I mentioned previously. It goes on this bottom left hand corner. So we'll install that. Then we'll install the rest of our head nuts. So we'll get all four of those installed. Now we'll go ahead and snug them up in a crisscross pattern, starting in the bottom right corner and go to the top left corner. Then we'll go to the bottom left corner, and then the top right corner. Now as you tighten these, the other ones that you tightened previously will be loose, so just want to go back over all of them and make sure they're all snug. Just like that. So now we can torque everything to spec. These head bolts get torqued to 106 inch-pounds. So we'll go ahead and tighten these down until we get a nice click from our torque wrench, just like that. We'll go ahead and do our bottom bolt until we get a nice click from it as well. Just like that. Then we'll recheck our top bolt and make sure it's still torqued. Now we can do our head nuts. These get torqued to 200 inch-pounds. So we'll do a crisscross pattern starting in this bottom left corner. Got a nice click out of that one. Now we'll do our top right corner. Got a nice click out of that one as well. Now we'll do our bottom right hand corner until it clicks. And then we'll do our top left hand corner. And then it clicks as well. And then we'll just double check and make sure all of our other bolts are at torque spec still. And they are all good to go. So now we can go ahead and install our cam gear here. Go ahead and get that slid onto our cam chain. So we're just gonna, put it on the chain in a spot where we're, at least close to our timing mark. If we have to adjust it, we certainly can do that by tooth, but just kind of eyeballing it here. See where our cam gear's at and our timing mark. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate our cam in the back there and then try to line it up with the holes in the cam gear. Go ahead and install our little arms for our decompression weights. Make sure those are on the cam as well. Now we can use a little flathead screwdriver to try and pry the cam up a little bit and get it to line up better with the holes in the cam gear. So go ahead and slide that up just like this until our holes align. So there we go. Now we'll go ahead and install one of our cam gear bolts. So we'll go ahead and just install it so we can check our timing marks. If we have to adjust them, we can, but they honestly look pretty good. So we'll go ahead and snug that one up just a little bit, just to hold our cam gear in place. Now we can go ahead and check our timing marks. So we'll go ahead and turn the engine over. And it does feel good. I can actually feel that exhaust valve open there. You see the cam chain kind of got loose. And then the exhaust valve closing. Now we're coming around and I can feel the intake valve open and then close. And then we're coming back to top dead center here. So we'll get our timing mark lined up there. So I'll go ahead and take you guys off the stand so you can get a better look at the timing marks. So we'll check them from a nice and level plane of sight. Anytime you check timing marks, you want to get down and level with them. So there is a mark on our flywheel as well. Everything is lined up and can't believe we actually got it on the first try. So here is a shot of the timing marks before and the timing marks after. This is just a good idea for anybody who isn't super confident when you're doing timing marks. If this is your first time or something, it's always good to have a before picture That way you have something to compare it to. You could also use some white fingernail polish as well and mark the cam gear and the cam chain, just to have something to realign it with. But I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys this side-by-side shot because we got it right on the money. So now we can go ahead and reinstall our cam chain tensioner, and it's two 10mm bolts. So we'll go ahead and get both of those installed. We'll thread those down by hand at first. So we'll go ahead and get both of those hand tight. And then we'll get ready to snug them up with our 10mm wrench here. So we'll snug both of those up. Get them nice and snug here. And when you do install the cam chain tensioner, you want to install it with that arrow facing towards you. So now we can go ahead and put pressure on our cam chain. So we'll go ahead and release our cam chain tensioner. So we'll just install our flathead screwdriver here and turn it counterclockwise. And we'll go ahead and put tension on our cam chain, just like that. Now, when you put tension back on your cam chain, there is the potential for your marks to move. So we're going to go ahead and double check our timing marks just to make sure they didn't jump when we put our cam chain tensioner on. So we'll come back around to top dead center here. And we'll make sure our mark is dead on the money here, lined up perfect. And I'll take you guys back off the stand so you can look at the marks a little better. So we'll look at the mark on our cam gear. It is looking perfect. And then there is the mark on our flywheel as well. So I'm happy with those. And now we can go ahead and put our 10mm bolt in the top of our cam chain tensioner. So go ahead and snug that down. Just like that. And now we'll go ahead and get ready to install our cam chain bolts. So we'll go ahead and put a little bit of blue Loctite on this cam chain bolt. And then we will go ahead and install it. So our ratchet is still on our crankshaft, so that's going to hold it when we go ahead and tighten this so we can snug it up nice and tight. Now we can go ahead and rotate our motor over, and we'll remove that cam gear bolt that we put in previously. So we'll go ahead and remove it, and we'll apply some Loctite to the threads of this one as well. And now we can reinstall it now that we're confident our timing marks are set. So we'll go ahead and tighten this one up as well. So you might have to hold the ratchet when you tighten this one because it's spinning the crank the opposite way. So go ahead and make sure that one's nice and snug. And now we are going to go ahead and just double check our timing marks one more time to be on the safe side. So it doesn't hurt to triple check. So I'll go ahead and pull you guys off the stand one more time so you can have another look at our timing marks. There's one on our flywheel, and then there is the one on our cam gear. So they both look super good. So I'm happy with our timing marks. And now I did go ahead and clean up that gasket surface for our stator cover as well. Just use a little bit of sandpaper on that to clean that gasket surface up. So we can go ahead and install our new stator cover gasket. So we'll go ahead and get that on, and then we'll pop our stator cover on here. This is kind of magnetized, so it will kind of just plop on just like that. Now we'll go ahead and install our bolts. There are long ones and short ones. So a long one goes here, and then another long one goes right underneath of it. And then our last long one goes right on the bottom. And the rest are all short. So we'll go ahead and pop those in as well. So we'll get all those in. Just like that. Then we'll go ahead and tighten them up in a kind of crisscross pattern here. So we'll make sure all of those are snug. Now we can go ahead and install our chain guard as well. And it's 3mm, 3 8mm bolts. So we'll go ahead and install all 3 of those. So we'll pop those back on. Now our gasket kit did come with new O-rings, so we're going to go ahead and install a new one on our cam gear cover. So we'll pop this one in. Make sure it's seated down all the way. And now we can reinstall our cam gear cover, and it's for 8mm bolts. So we'll go ahead and get all 4 of those installed. Then we'll go ahead and snug them up. So we'll just tighten them with our ratchet and then give them a 1/4 turn a piece. Now we can go ahead and install a new O-ring for our bottom last adjuster. Now this one did need it because it was a little leaky. So good to have an O-ring for that one. We'll go ahead and put a new O-ring in our top last adjuster cover as well. We'll go ahead and install that with its 2 8mm bolts. And then for the other side, there is that little guide for the clutch cable. So we'll want to make sure we install that as well when we thread in our bolt. Now we'll just go ahead and snug those up with our ratchet as well. So we'll get them snug and then give them a 1/4 turn, each one of them. And then we'll do the bottom as well. I'm going to snug these a little tighter just so they don't leak, but not too tight. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our intake with its spacer on the bottom and its 2 8mm bolts. So we'll go ahead and thread both of those in. Thread them in by hand at first, and then we'll snug them up with our 8mm wrench. So go ahead and snug both sides up. Just like that. Make sure both are tight. Now we'll reinstall our spark plug here. And then we'll tighten it up as well. Now we're going to go ahead and thread our choke cable through to the other side, and also some of our breather lines as well. Then we'll go ahead and install our carb onto the airbox side. Now I forgot that I actually tightened that clamp up so it wouldn't fall off. So we're going to go ahead and loosen it here. And then now we can go ahead and pop our airbox on. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and install our spacer here. There's no gaskets on this spacer because the intake is O-ringed and so is that side of the carb. So it makes it nice and easy. So we'll go ahead and get our spacer there, and then we'll go ahead and install our carb with the 2 8mm bolts. Go ahead and thread those in. going to go around to the other side and thread that one down. And we'll come back around to this side and snug it up. So we'll make sure that's nice and tight. Then we'll go around to the other side and do the same. So we'll get this one snugged up as well. So we'll go ahead and make sure this one's nice and tight as well. Now, while we're over here, we can reinstall our choke cable. Make sure that that ground wire is installed on that 8mm bolt there. And we can go ahead and thread these in as well. Now we'll just go ahead and tighten them up here. And go ahead and snug them down with our ratchet. And then we'll go ahead and test our choke as well, just to make sure it's working. So we're all good there. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our spark plug wire and our fuel line. So we'll pop that on, and then we'll reinstall our clip for the fuel line as well. Get that all the way installed. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our throttle cable. So we'll go ahead and get our slide in place. I did also remove the gas tank to reinstall this. It does make it easier. So we'll go ahead and thread our cap back on. Just like that. So we'll get it nice and tight. And I'll just kind of straighten that rubber out a little bit there. Now I'll reinstall this support for our fairing. And then also there's a little guide for our throttle cable as well that goes with this 8mm bolt. So we'll make sure both of those are on there. And then we'll snug those up. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our oil line and the two 10mm banjo bolts. We'll make sure that our copper washers are on both sides of that oil line there. Then we'll reinstall our bottom one. So we'll slide our washer up in the back and then slide our banjo bolt through. So we'll go ahead and snug both of those up. So we don't want them too tight though. We want a little bit of wiggle room so we can install this Phillips head screw as well. So we'll go ahead and get that tight. And now we can go back and snug up our banjo bolts and make sure they're nice and tight as well. Let's tighten those up. Make sure both are snug. Now we can install the exhaust. My buddy did get a new exhaust for this bike as well. So this is a brand new BBR exhaust. So we'll go ahead and snake that guy through just like that. Now we can go ahead and install our new exhaust gasket. So we'll slide that up into the cylinder. Just like that. And then we'll kind of use our exhaust to hold it in place. Now we can install our collar onto the studs. And we'll go ahead and thread our two 12mm nuts on. So we'll get both of those threaded on by hand. Just like that. And now we can go ahead and snug them up with our 12mm wrench. So we'll make sure both of those are nice and tight. So we'll get both of those snug, and then we can go ahead and try our first start here. Almost. So there it goes. It started up on the second kick, and it sounds great. So I am happy with that. So there is the first start. So now we can go ahead and reinstall our plastics here. Go ahead and put our fairings on. Go ahead and put those two 8mm bolts in the back, and then we'll go ahead and do our front. Go around to the other side and do the front as well. We'll snug all four of those up, and then we can install our number plates. We'll install the bottom bolts into the number plates. Now we can go ahead and install our seat. And now we can do our top bolts because they hold on the number plate and the seat as well. So we'll snug those up. And now we can go ahead and get ready to do the first heat cycle. So I'll show you guys that as well. So you can see she started up first kick there. So I'm going to go ahead and do the heat cycle. So we're going to go ahead and let it idle for quite a while here. We're just going to let it get up to temperature. This is good because when you do a fresh rebuild, you want the rings, the piston rings, to be seated. So we're going to let things heat up and kind of expand and break in nice and slow here. So we'll just let it idle for a while. So you can rev it up a little bit just to make it sure it heats up a little bit quicker. You don't really want to rev it past quarter throttle though during the break-in process. So give it a couple revs. It sounds great. We'll let it idle for a little longer here. Go ahead and rev it a few more times. Let it get up to temperature. So we'll let it idle a little bit longer here. Now we'll go ahead and shut it off. So that was the first heat cycle complete there. I let it cool down. After that, I let it sit for about an hour, and then I restarted it up and did the same thing. Let it come up to temperature and heat up. After you do your second heat cycle, you can ride it around at about a quarter of a throttle for about a half a tank of gas. And then after that, your break-in is complete, and you can ride the bike just like normal and take it to the rev limiter if you wanted to. So real quick, I did want to talk about jetting. So we did buy a jet kit for this bike. I thought I was going to need one, but ultimately we ended up keeping the stock main jet and the stock pilot jet in this bike. I did try sticking a larger jet in it. It did not respond well to it. I only went up one size, and the bike was running rich. I did confirm that by putting a new spark plug in it and then removing the plug. It was running rich, so this bike only needed the stock jets. Now, that's with the 143cc Big Bore kit and the pipe on it as well. But you got to remember this bike has a stock airbox, and he wants to keep the stock airbox because the one on the KLX is really good at keeping out dust and debris, and he does ride this at the track and stuff, so he wants to keep the factory airbox. But if you decide to go with a pod filter or something like that that's going to give it more air, you will likely need to rejet it, but we didn't in this case. So the bike is ready to ride here. It sounds good idling. And there you can hear us talking about how good that new BBR exhaust sounds. It does sound really good. So the bike is ready to ride at this point. So you can see it comes up there in first there with just power from the bike. And it comes up in second and third as well. These little KLXs are wheelie machines. So they're fun little pit bikes. These 143cc kits really bring them to life and make them a ton of fun. So he's having a blast with this bike. Here he is out here whipping on the track. It's my buddy James. He's hitting doubles on this thing now. So quite a power increase. You can hear that thing out there ripping. He's out there having a ton of fun on this thing. Little thing rips now. So I hope you guys found that video useful. It's step-by-step tutorial for people who are looking to do this for their first time. Like I said, these kits are really easy to install and they're a ton of fun as well. You don't really need any special tools to install this kit, and you can do it even in your backyard just like I did. So you don't need a shop. You don't really need special tools or anything. These kits are, convenient, and they do add quite a bit of power to your pit bike. So they really bring them, these little Klx110s to life, make them a ton of fun. So this is a good idea for your little pit bike, or like I said, if it's your kid's bike and they're ready for some more power, but they're not ready to go up in a bike size, this is also a good option. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.